Please get out of these Democratic cities, ladies and gentlemen. We know that Chicago is in shambles. It is absolutely in shambles. Um, the problem is that you have a lot of people that are leaving these Democratic hellholes. They go, they tear it up, and then they run down to the same places that they say is ideal, but then they trying to turn it into the place that they came from by voting the same way.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Spiritual Politics. I'm your host, Noble and Pooh. Okay. So before I even get started, man, first let me say subscribe, hit the like button and notification button. But listen, if you don't, all I ask is just watch the entire video all the way out. If you learn something never heard before in a sense, or you dislike it, then at that point, I'm gonna ask you to subscribe, hit that like button, and hit that notification button. Okay. Now, before I get started, I must say, because I'm self-conscious about it, okay. Excuse my appearance, man. I literally when I say bump my face, I'm talking about bump my face and totally bust my lip. All right. And so I'm self-conscious a little bit about it and whatnot. So if you see it, hey, I had to tell the truth. I had to come out and tell anyway. Regardless to my appearance, I have to tell because this kind of information you just can't sit on. You know what I'm saying? It really needs to be a global broadcast, in my opinion. Okay. And so let me play a clip from my bro Anton Daniels, man, because I've been sitting on this information, been working on some things, and he says something. I'm like, boy, I got that in the bag. So it's one thing's triggered, one thing's like an alley oop for me and whatnot. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's play ball. All right. And this is what actually prompted this. So let me go ahead and bring that up. Let me play this clip for you.
Please get out of these Democratic cities, ladies and gentlemen. We know that Chicago is in shambles. It is absolutely in shambles. Um, the problem is that you have a lot of people that are leaving these Democratic hellholes. They go, they tear it up, and then they run down to the same places that they say is ideal, but then they trying to turn it into the place that they came from by voting the same way.
All right. So he's telling you, hey man, leave these Democratic hellholes. Okay. Now, speaking of a Democratic hellhole, right? Here's a good one. Philadelphia, the birthplace of the nation. Horrible. This is on Kensington Avenue, right here. Okay. So you're gonna see a guy getting mad over some drugs. Look. In front of a business. Like, where do they do this at? Like, in front of a business. Trash, drugs, leaned over. It is unreal. Trash is everywhere. It just seems like airborne disease. Look, leaned up against the wall back there. About to see one leaned on the curb. There she go. Seem like airborne disease is just everywhere. Unfreaking. Look at all these storefronts. Unfreaking believable. This is in Philadelphia, the birthplace of the nation. I can't believe it. Businesses are suffering because the city allows for this strip, Kensington Avenue, to be the home of drug addicts. This is just totally unacceptable. But hey, Philadelphia hasn't had a Republican mayor for a very, 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 very long time. Okay, very long time. In fact, when you had one who went Republican, Rizzo, he was a gangster. Okay, he wasn't playing no games with people. All right, so this is absolutely a Democratic hellhole. Now, the question I had asked myself as a student of an enthusiast of American history Well, how did we go from Republican? Because Abe Lincoln, I don't know if you see him. You see him? Yeah, there you go. Abe Lincoln was the first Republican president. Okay. Um, the Republican Party of 1854 said, "Hey, we're the anti-slave party." In fact, Lincoln's opponent, Judge Douglas, told Lincoln and was calling the Republican Party the Black Republicanism Party. Yeah, the Republican Party was preaching Black Republicanism. That was the charge to the Democrats was charging the Republicans with that. Okay. And so when you see Lincoln and you see Sherman, you see Grant, these soldiers, these are the war generals in the Civil War. And then Grant will go off to become president, which is very important. His presidency is very, very, very important because you get the 15th Amendment, the right to vote, and you started getting black citizens, and Grant stumps out the Ku Klux Klan, right? As he should. And so these guys were Republicans, but I'm like, well, what happened? Because if you look at um the presidents after Lincoln, right? You're gonna see a lot of northern Republicans, especially coming out of Ohio after Lincoln's death. Okay. Um, and something happened. There was a switch somewhere along the line. There was a switch, and I wanted to find out where that switch was at, and we found it. That switch was 1964, really a little bit prior, because Kennedy wins the 60 election. LBJ is his vice president, but in 1964, for sure, there's going to be a major switch between LBJ and Barry Goldwater, the Republican, who Goldwater was not he didn't endorse and didn't vote for the Civil Rights Bill of 1964-65 because he said that he believed it was two things in it that made it unconstitutional. Not that he was an anti-civil rights guy, because he wasn't. In fact, I read somewhere what King said he don't believe Barry Goldwater to be a racist, but since he's not voting for this, that upholds the current racist structure. Therefore, he can't get his vote, which means all the millions of people who behind King, you wasn't gonna get they vote. In fact, here is what Mr. Martin
And
Luther
go to
King had to
Chicago
say.
and then to Detroit and then Baltimore, Maryland, and New York to say the same thing. I come here to urge every person under the sound of my voice to go to the polls on the 3rd of November and vote your convictions. Now, I know you're intelligent people, and I don't need to tell you who you should vote for. I don't have any fear about that. You know who to vote for. I'm just asking you to vote. Now, just if you need,
Here it come.
now if you need a little information on my convictions at this point, I must honestly admit to you that I am not going to vote for Mr. Goldwater.
Here comes another one.
And I don't think any Negro and white person of goodwill will vote for Mr. Goldwater.
That stuck a nail in Goldwater's coffin. Okay. So let's go to it, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking 1964 election. You will see the South goes for Goldwater because those Southern powers, which, by the way, 1968, in my opinion, is the final death blow in the electoral side. And I'll explain that in a whole nother different video. But anyway, the South goes with Goldwater because Goldwater says, listen, I'm not voting for the Civil Rights Act. Although Goldwater was in agreement with Martin Luther King's statement that the federal government is not necessarily doing enough, especially the office of the attorney general is doing enough to stop the white mobs. See, again, Goldwater's Republican, but he is not with the Civil Rights Act because he believed there are two things in it that's unconstitutional. Not that he's anti-civil rights, because he's on the record for voting for civil rights. In fact, again, when you go look at his track record in Arizona, you will see he was dealing with things that dealt with discrimination. Again, King is said to has said, I don't believe Goldwater to be a racist, but since he's not pretty much passing this and endorsing this, then I can't vote for him. And the whole country goes for LBJ, because the whole country, once again, the whole country is seeing that the situation down south, slavery's over, but it's still, y'all can't vote. You get a right to vote with Grant in 1870. But how is it? How is it that you got to wait 95 years to 1965 for the Civil Rights Act to pass, or the Voter Rights Act to pass? That's 95 years later, because those southern states that you see, they are losing Confederates that are upset, and now they're going to institute laws called Jim Crow, the Black Codes, and things of that nature to stop us from voting for 95 years. United States of America, that's where you drop the ball. I'm not mad at you about slavery, because I know the truth about slavery, and I know what you did about slavery. And we working on that, and we're going to put that out as well, which definitely is a documentary in the making. I'm not mad about that, because I know the facts and the timeline about that. But here at the civil rights, what was called Reconstruction, epic fail. You dropped the ball right there. Okay. So anyway, this is where the game changes in 64. Interesting, because I always say the culture will always express itself. The truth will always come through cultural expression. In other words, my brother Minister Jew would say it like this: the hieroglyphics are no longer on the wall. They're walking and talking and breathing, where they're us. So the information is coming through us. So what happened in 1964? What happened in 1964 was the six-fold Impala came out, and then the cultural expression said, we're going to put hydraulics on these cars, and we're going to call them switches. And now we're going to hit the switch. Because politically speaking, in 1964, there was a switch. You understand that? This is why I call this show Spiritual Politics, because you have to understand the spirituality of the situation. But I'm not going to get heavy into that. Let's deal with the physical. Okay. All right. So now, as you heard King, what he said, let me put this on the other side. He said, hey, we're going to go to Chicago. We're going to go to Detroit. We're going to go to Baltimore. We're going to go to New York City with the same message, telling you to go Democrat. Now, here we are. This is 1964. Here we are looking at a map of Illinois in the 2020 election. Let me break out my calculator so I can be right here. What's 2020 minus 1964? That's 56 years. Divide that by 4, right? That's 14 election cycles later. 14 election cycles later, Chicago at the top is still voting Democrat. The cities are Democrat, but the states, majority of the state counties, are Republican. The states are red, the cities are blue. Watch this. So let's move. Let's come over to the glove. Let's come to Detroit. Look at Detroit. Blue. If you suck at geography, you need to stop sucking at it, because you live here. You need to understand where you at, right? So once again, when you get to the city, blue. But the state clearly is red. When you come over into Maryland, red, until you get into the Baltimore area, blue. You come over to New York City, if you know this is New York State, but if you know New York City is at the bottom piece of the island that's dark blue. There go your Brooklyn, your Queens, your Manhattans, all that, the 5 boroughs. A nicely sized Democratic state, even Erie County, which would be that blue one at the more on the top left side, Erie County at the very top, right? Not all the way to the left, but Erie County is the one that's top left. That's Buffalo, right? So these, anywhere there's cities, in a sense, the cities go blue, but the states be red. You got to understand that, right? So again, when when did this happen? Okay? When did this happen? Man, it happened in 1964. Let me blow this up for you so you can see this. All right? And this is from the New York Times. Weeks before the presidential election of 64, African Americans and their advocates were working toward a record turnout. The NAACP announced it had registered 5.5 million black voters in 34 states and the District of Columbia as of October 1st, and estimated that the black electorate could number as many as 12 million. In the end, this was about how many blacks turned out according to the census data compiled after the fact. Turnout reached 58.5% for an estimated black population of 20.7 million. Data on voting by race isn't available for years before 1964, but the NAACP estimated at the time that no more than 5 million African Americans voted in the presidential election of 1960. Okay. Now, black voters wouldn't go to the polls at such levels again until President Obama's first election in '08, when 60.8% then of them voted. In 2012, 62% turned out for Mr. Obama's re-election. Where's our other 40% and our other 38%? You know, where is that at? Okay. What's most impressive about the 64 result, though, it is what it say though is that it happened at a time when some southern states still viciously repress blacks attempts to vote. That wouldn't begin to end until the following year when the Voting Rights Act passed with the strong support of President Lyndon B. Johnson, who owed much of his election margin to that enormous black turnout. In fact, check this out. Black turnout outside the South hit 72% in 1964. This is outside the South, a level it has not reached since. So outside of the South, we ain't even come this hard for Obama outside of the South. But see, outside of the South means what to me? When I see that, that tells me that's the North, man. That's everybody else, which these states became very critical to our freedom. If you understand the play, which we're working on that documentary to actually show you the real truth of what happened and how we got free. Okay. So I see a few things here. One, we ain't even voting at 100% capacity. And we only came out for real in record numbers again when Obama came. But my point, another thing that I see too is King set a record. We saw that King set a record with the 64 election. Although King sold us to the Democratic Party, he did so with a good cause, and we need to learn something here. The problem that we're having in society as black men, okay, as black men, is the failure to produce a bill for the collective cause that we can all say we agree upon. That's the problem right there. So if we need it clearly in 64, we need a right to vote. This is something they stopping us. In fact, it's our constitutional right to vote by the 15th Amendment by grant right here. So what's up, America? What's going on? So we need this Voters' Rights Act to pass. Period. And so who gonna do it? Goldwater. Oh, I believe two things is unconstitutional. I can't stamp that. All right, cool. Okay. He the one that he messed up with that one. Because from that point, that was the beginning, the inception point of a party switch. Okay. So LBJ, I'll do it. Okay, cool. Well, King, with all the influence that he have, you heard him. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I ain't voting for him, and I don't believe no morally conscious black person or white person is gonna vote for him. So he telling you who to vote for. You understand what I'm saying? So this is where it happened, ladies and gentlemen, right here at the 1964 election remix. Hit that switch. The switches is popping, right? That's where it happened at right then and there. As men, we need to man up, come up with the agenda, because that's what King did. Come up with an agenda and learn how to play the game of politics. All right. In my opinion, Donald Trump is the one that'll make a deal because he loves deals. He's the deal man. He loves deals, the art of the deal. He loves the deal. He's already talking about purchasing land from the federal government, these federal public lands that's old. Ooh, that plays right into a guideline of a bill that I have been working on that deals with land and what you would call reparations in a sense. You know what I mean? These federal lands. Oh, them 40 acres in the mule right here, right there. Uncle Billy, William T. Sherman. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. We need to come for that. We need to come for that. Easy. Easy. It ain't hard to do. It ain't hard to do. You better man up. That's all I got to say, man. All right. So if you want to get at me, man, you can reach me via email, nobleandpoot@gmail. All right. Spiritualpolitics777 at Gmail as well. Spiritualpolitics777 at Gmail. Join the Patreon, man. I'm about to start dropping some of my real estate stuff in there. But that's more of a, Patreon as of now. I've been building it up through the spiritual conversational pieces, mainly the cosmos, these stars, phenomenal information. In fact, I'm going live on YouTube on our other channel, Hip Hop Astrology TV. On our other channel, Hip Hop Astrology TV. Okay. And of course, hey man, I got 2 podcasts that you can listen to. I on iTunes and whatever they got now. What is it? iTunes, all that stuff. Whatever it is on all your so much stuff. I'm starting to get confused. But anywhere you listen to your audio podcast, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Google, check for Spiritual Politics with Noble and Pooh, and also check for Cosmic Conversations. You can listen to me while you're on the move, man. All right. All right, man. So you know what to do. I asked you in the beginning to what? Click that like button, click that subscribe button, and hit that notification button for me, please. That helps the algorithm. And I'll see you guys on the next video. All right. Peace out.